going to be joined online by the miracle that is Zoom, because we have to say good morning to Mr. Collie McFadgen. Collie, hold on a second now. I'm going to press a button here. Right, there we go. Good morning, Collie. How are you?
Good morning. I got all excited there when you were saying, that miracle, and then I realized you were talking about the technology rather than me. But,
well, look at,
let's see how I do.
Exactly. We'll reserve
judgment.
We'll reserve judgment until until we get to the end of this segment. I don't know. Does this feel right? Or it does sort of feel right, but it doesn't feel right, because last time we spoke, we were in person. We were face to face, a few feet from each other. Now we're back to normal.
Yeah, well, isn't it funny that that's back to normal rather than the other way around? It is true, but last time, there were a few interesting movies, but because we were face-to-face, we did get distracted by talking about Michael Flatley. So I'm wondering, might we stay more professional this way? The production team can send us messages going, stop talking about river dancers.
Yeah.
Whereas we were allowed to misbehave last week. But we'll see. You just got to get out in that big bus of yours more.
I know. We're going to be out in it more. And there's a real sense of fun when we're out and around in that bus. It's great crack. Yeah. And we just have people coming in, just randomers walking in, saying hello, like yourself.
Yeah, that's it. It's good to know. Well, I'm always up for it. But,
good.
The other thing is we get to do the fancy background and we get to record it. So, each has it as moments. And like this month, I've a load of backgrounds loaded up because we've so many movies out. There has been a bit of a dearth of movies. They've been kind of pawning them out. And I think we've kind of caught up after the pandemic, at least with movies for grown-ups. We've one big kids movie to talk about, but there's a load of really interesting movies coming out that I think a lot of your listeners, no matter what their taste is in movies, are going to really enjoy. And I suppose we'd start with a couple that had just come out this weekend. And I'm just going to give a very brief mention to a movie called Smile, which has been scaring the bejesus out of people for the last couple of days.
Yeah,
it's really good. And I think it's probably been a while since we got a really good, creepy, scary movie. We've had lots of good movies, but people are going, yeah, I really liked The Black Phone, but it wasn't that scary. Whereas this is genuinely creepy horror movie. Friday, Saturday night. We're coming into the horror season. I know we're going to mention a couple of more later, and it seems to be doing the business. But for most people, I think it's fair to say, most people, the second movie that opened in cinemas throughout Donegal yesterday is Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris, and this is one that people have been waiting for a long time. It's the story about a woman, Mrs. Paris, or Mrs. Harris, even not surprisingly, who is a cleaner. She goes around and cleans all the posh houses, and her husband was lost in the war. It's about 10 years later. His body was never found, but she's kind of holding no hope, even though she knows realistically he ain't coming back. And she's going around all these glamorous people, cleaning their glamorous houses, looking after their glamorous clothes, and thinking, why can't I have something pretty for once in my life?
Okay, let's have a listen to a short clip of Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris.
Based on the best-selling novel.
Mrs. Ada Harris?
You should have been receiving a war widow's pension. Comes quite a tidy sum.
What are you going to do? I'm going to buy a Christian Dior dress from Paris.
Discover how far one dream can travel.
A Dior dress is designed to astonish. How will you do that?
It's delightful escapism.
I've spent too long on my own. You don't want to do the same thing.
You're a dreamer. That's what you are.
Wish me luck.
Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris in cinemas September 30th.
All right, so that is in cinemas right now. You've seen it, obviously. What's your thoughts?
I went to see it yesterday, and I'm so not the target market for this, and I absolutely really enjoyed myself. It's just a lovely, warm hug of a movie. People have compared it to Paddington. Not that it's a children's movie, it's not, but in the way that, she goes along, she meets all these strange people, including Christian Dior himself. I don't, they obviously put some money into it.
Yeah.
I mean, all these French characters, and she makes their life slightly better. And you know what? She makes our life slightly better after seeing the movie. It's one of those, you're going to be uplifted. Bring your mum, bring your granny, bring your friends. It's just really kind. Bring your mammo, which is Irish for granny, by the way. I just thought I'd throw that in for you. Always educational here on Highland Radio as well, isn't it?
Yeah, you're ticking all the boxes today.
Yeah, really well, educate and inform, to steal another radio station's motto. But It's just really nice. And like, you've met me in person. I am no fashion icon. I don't think that's a controversial thing to say. Give me a hoodie and a tracksuit bottoms, and I am very happy. This is
your
me
words,
up,
not mine. Your words, not mine.
Dressed up for the radio, and even I was going, "Ooh, that's a nice frock, isn't it? Oh, I like the green one. Oh, the blue one's much nicer." It's absolutely, people are going to really enjoy this. And when we're talking next month, it's still going to be out. It's going to be one of those that has legs.
I'm getting the feeling this is along the lines of Forrest Gump, a movie with real heart, a feel-good movie.
That's a really good example. Forrest Gump, but imagine as a cleaning lady, and lots of fashion instead of lots of history, but it's the same sort of feeling, and she kind of accidentally bumps into all these characters. And of course, needless to say, when they go to Paris, even though there's a rubbish strike and there's rubbish everywhere, of course Paris is gorgeous, and everyone she meets is absolutely gorgeous. Apparently there's loads of people from the TV show Emily in Paris in it, and everyone's stunningly good looking and wearing, going around in mopeds and stuff. And I was sitting there on a rainy afternoon yesterday on my own in the cinema in the cold, because nobody's turning on the heat these days. When you're watching this, not for the critics, for the customers, yes, for the critics, no. And I was sitting there watching it and going, wow, this is just lovely. I felt better already. I have a stinker of a cold. And for an hour and a half yesterday, it was gone.
You managed to forget.
I felt better. It was
well. That's a great endorsement. So that's Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. That's in theaters now. All right, where are we going next?
Let's go. Stick with the women, but a very different change of pace. We're going for The Woman King, which opens. It technically opens next week, but it previews every from Tuesday. This is the #1 movie in the States by a long way. It's the story of. I had to write this down. I think the Goje warriors, which was a tribe of female fierce bodyguards and warriors. Those of you who've seen Black Panther, which we're going to be talking about the sequel next month, will have seen the guards. This is kind of based on them, because these were real life characters. The kings of Central Africa had these female warriors who were the fiercest, bravest, strongest warriors. And they've taken that true bit of history and messed around with it a bit and made this story where they're fighting against slavery.
Right. We're going to have, before we go any further, we'll have a listen just to give the listeners a taster of what's in store. This is The Woman King.
They do not know an evil is coming.
They know you will protect them.
We must fight back for our people. Let it be known to all. We fight not just for today, but for the future. We are the Homeland. A warrior must stand on her own. You are our
Behold, the Woman King.
That sounds quite sinister, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. So we're comparing our movies to 90s movies. If Mrs. Harris is Forrest Gump, I think this is Braveheart. This is Braveheart with kind of African warriors, that sort of thing. And Viola Davis, who, you think of in very serious actorly role, Oscar-winning dramas. She was in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, stuff like that, Oscar nominated. She is buff in this, and it's action. And here's a way of describing it. This has been the trailer for Top Gun. It's kind of the same audience. It's just action. Really exciting. And as I said, it's one of those movies that I know it was knocking around the movie studios for years, and people are going, would somebody want to see a movie about, black women fighting in Africa? No interest in that. Made buckets of money in the States already. It has been a humongous hit, and I can't wait to see it. So if you like, as I said, Braveheart type of movie, that sort of fighting against adversity and loads of action, it looks really stunning and amazing. The trailer itself, people won't have seen the pictures, but it looks very dramatic, doesn't it? I really have high hopes for this. I think it's going to be a big hit.
Well, it's doing the business stateside, so obviously it's going to do the business here as well. Okay, it's 12 minutes to midday. We're going to go for a short commercial break. We're going to be back. We're going to talk Halloween Ends, and we're also going to talk, what are we going to talk? Hocus Pocus?
Yeah, and a bit of Lyle Crocodile too.
Okay, stay with us. We're back right after this.
For 44 years, the darkness behind Michael's mask has remained a mystery.
Michael Myers kills babysitters, not kids.
I looked into his eyes.
This time, he's more dangerous. You came here to kill me. So do it.
Halloween Ends in cinemas October 14.
10 minutes to midday. It's a Saturday morning rewind. Colin McFadden is with us, and we are talking all things movies. And we are going now to, we're revisiting a franchise that's been, I don't know how many times it's been revisited now at this stage. Halloween Ends.
Well, it depends who you talk to. If you talk to Jamie Lee Curtis, there's only been about 4 or 5 movies. You talk to somebody else, there's been about 14.
Yeah.
But what they did, it was very clever. They kind of went back and rebooted with the original cast with Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah.
And playing her as a very different character. In the first movie and the second, if I remember right, she's very much running away from now she's a grandmother and she's going to get her revenge.
And a broken woman.
Yes, indeed. And this has taken over her whole life. And they come full circle. The last 2 did really well. People were really surprised to see them. And they've promised that this is the end. Now, anybody who knows anything about movies knows, the end is never the end. But it might be the end for this particular chapter with the brilliant Jamie Lee Curtis, who I've always loved. The first VHS movie I ever saw was Trading Places, and I've loved her ever since, even though I think I was way too young to see it. And I'm looking forward to seeing it because she adds a stamp of quality to this. It is just a silly slasher Halloween movie, but it is Halloween. It is the season. And I think people really enjoy this. And people love revisiting these characters.
Bearing in mind that her character was actually killed off in the original timeline, if you want to call it that, in Halloween Resurrection back in the early 2000s.
Well, you see, they wouldn't count. Resurrection didn't happen. I
know
this
is not canon.
Yes, this is very like Trump and Boris Johnson. No, this never happened. We're getting like this. But let's just pretend this didn't happen. It's the world of movies. We can do whatever we want. A man can fly. Jamie Lee Curtis can come back to life. I'm okay with that.
They went back, they went back to they deleted basically the old timeline and went back to basics. The first installment in this particular timeline was quite faithful to the original, which is what I think people liked. The second one was out last year. It was delayed because of the pandemic. Halloween Kills.
It was so-so, wasn't it?
It was a good premise in that, the tables were sort of turned on Michael Myers, and Michael Myers was the one being hunted, as opposed to him being the hunter. But it was poorly executed. I thought they focused, what made these films successful, in my opinion, and what made them, really interesting was it wasn't about what you could see, it's about what you really couldn't see, and that sense of anticipation of what's lurking around that corner. Whereas in Halloween Kills, which is the last installment, they went very much, for the out-and-out gore, which I didn't really think worked that well. What's your thoughts on that?
I couldn't agree with you more. One of the things about those movies were they were very scary, especially growing up as a child of VHS videos in the 80s and 90s. But they weren't that explicit. They weren't that gory. And I think you nailed it, though, when you said about the pandemic. I think there was a bit of a rush job on Halloween Kills because they wanted to have one every year for the 3 years. And they kind of got caught out. And they rushed it and they didn't land it properly. But they have promised, they've kind of mentioned this in the press notes for this one, that they're going to try and come back and finish with a bang. And sometimes the middle movies, dare I say it, even Back to the Future 2, I think is the weakest of them. And that's often the case because you're kind of getting from one place to another and there's no real sense of resolution. I was disappointed with Halloween Kills, but I didn't hate it because I seen a lot of rubbish. I think that's probably right. I watched a lot of rubbish, so I went, it's not what I hoped, but it was okay. But I was always aware that the third one was coming, and so my fingers are crossed for this one. I think they're going to nail it. I'm really curious to see. Obviously, you like horror movies, and I'm really curious to see what you think of it next month. We'll have a chat.
Okay, so that's Halloween Ends, and that's in theaters now, isn't it?
No, not till the 14th.
14th of October, Halloween Ends hits theaters. All right, staying on the theme of Halloween, let's go very quickly to this isn't in cinemas. It's streaming on Disney Plus. This has been hotly anticipated. I'd say for the last 20 years, the rumors have been doing the rounds. I don't quite know if it's been stuck in development hell per se, but it's finally come to fruition. Hocus Pocus 2.
Yeah, and funny enough, Hocus Pocus wasn't a huge hit first time around.
No.
It's one of those that built up momentum over the years, probably on video and DVD, and became more of a cult classic, and then started getting re-released back into the cinema. There's lots of movies like that. Shawshank Redemption, Bill and Ted, all of those weren't hits first time around. But we've been looking forward to this for a long time, and apparently they're waiting for the script. And I know cinemas were hugely disappointed when they decided to go straight for Disney+. And I'm afraid I have to say, judging by the reviews, now we see why. It's been a bit of a sanitization of them. Now, I'm sure, look, if you love Hocus Pocus, we all like to go and visit. You were talking about Halloween Kills, going, even if it's not great, you love to see the old characters again. So people are probably going to enjoy this. But I don't think it'll have the same repeat viewing as the first one. Because, for example, Bette Midler's character and Sarah Jessica Parker and all those, they were pretty evil in the first one. This time it's kind of, but it wasn't really their fault. And I don't know if anybody wants that.
It's a watered down, is there a, well, I don't want to spoil it on anybody. Is it a bit of a redemption story?
A little bit, or at least they have a good reason for it. They're not eating children anymore, you know. Can I say, seeing as you brought up the idea of streaming, what's still streaming is the original movie of The Witches, 1990, Nicholas Roeg. Now, that's a scary movie for families.
That is a scary movie.
Yeah, and it's brilliant. And it's 30 years old, but little people now, it's both suitable for them and it'll absolutely scare the pants off them in a good way, in the way that children love to be scared. That's a great movie, and that's streaming at the moment. Really good.
Okay, so that is Hocus Pocus 2 streaming now on Disney+. All right, very quickly, we have about 2.5 minutes left. Where are we going next?
Okay, seeing as we're talking about children's movies, and I've been a bit negative, let's be a bit positive. We've been ages, probably since Tad the Lost Explorer, that we've had a good children's movie, and we're getting a new one. It's called Lyle Crocodile. Funnily enough, it's about a crocodile who arrives in New York City. Where else would you go, I suppose, if you're a crocodile? And now this crocodile can't talk. I wasn't aware. Most can, but he can sing. And when he sings, he's the voice of Shawn Mendes. And now, because I'm an owl fella, I kind of had to look up who Shawn Mendes was, right? I was kind of aware of the name, but he seems to be a very safe, nice pop singer. Would that be a fair way of putting it, Rory?
Probably, yeah. We'll go with that. We'll run with that.
Yeah, he's a lovely voice. And so, of course, it's kind of in a Peter Rabbit sort of style. So it's a cartoon crocodile, real life actors. It's funny, Javier Bardem's in it and goes, Oscar winner, Javier Bardem. And I'm sure he doesn't care about the Oscar. That's not what they picked him to dance with a crocodile. But this movie, it looks like really good fun for all the family. Everyone loves some pop music, singing, crocodile, dancing. He's going to make everyone's life better. And maybe that's what we need in this time. Now, the only thing is, Shawn Mendes, it's a bit of a safe bet. Why not go for Bjork, the singing crocodile, doing her weird stuff? Or how about Kneecap? Northwest Zone Kneecap with a crocodile.
Can't see it having the same mass appeal now.
I'd watch that movie though. Make the cut for us. But it looks good fun, and I think families will enjoy it. And that's open from next weekend. There's previews, and I know families love to go and see it, especially with this weather.
Lyle, a crocodile. Collie, a pleasure as always to talk to you. We will talk to you next month, beginning of November.